Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over the latest letter from the producer, live number 61. Good thing it says it right on that graphic right there, because I forgot to check before I started this. We're doing one of those usual recording it live on Twitch, so the intro and the outro might be a little scuffed, but it is what it is. This live letter was an interesting one. There were a lot of ups and downs among the various announcements. Still a lot of questions we have, even just now that we know, and the confirmed date, about 12 days out from the patch itself. But we'll get into those individual details when we get through the various sections. Thank you to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord and Miuna and Iluna, both for doing their translations, which we normally reference here for the videos. If you go to Final Fantasy XIV's Reddit, go to their Discord page, and then go to translations and live letters. That's where you can usually find stuff like this. And we do include that in a lot of our videos. So thank you to them for doing that as they normally do. Now, we're not going to talk too much about the trailer itself. There's a lot to unpack in a very dense trailer, so I'm going to be doing a separate trailer video. There's just a bunch of screenshots that leave us with a whole heap and hell of a lot of questions about what's going to be happening in this patch. So I'm not going to go too deep into that in this, because that would just add another 20 minutes onto a video that's already going to be probably way too long. So that's just them doing the introduction and confirming that Futures Rewritten will officially be launching December 8th. I had been predicting this for a long time based on their early December tease, and assuming that once we knew the live letter was on the 27th, they wouldn't release it like 4 or 5 days after that. So the 8th makes the most sense, and they have indeed confirmed that. So there's of course going to be splits. There's going to be a 0.1 and a 0.5 in probably January and February, but for now we can start with whatever we've got here. That's what we're going to be starting with. They also confirmed maintenance will be 24 hours, so it'll be down for pretty much all of Monday, starting from probably around 1 a.m. or midnight or something like that. So be ready for a full day of no Final Fantasy XIV. So anyway, moving on from here, they're just going over trailer stuff real quick. They rewatched the trailer at the very beginning, and then they started with a recap on the stuff that we got from the previous live letter. They do this normally in Part 2 live letters, so there really isn't a whole lot to pull away. Leave me alone. Yes, I know microphone access denied. That's maybe I shouldn't have clicked X on that, but not relevant. They confirmed, obviously, we're not referring to Ishtola anymore with Materia, because we're back on the source, and we already have a Materia there. They, of course, reminded us of Casher Marinum, which is where Cape Westwind is located, by the way. So that trial is going to be there. Eden's Promise, which will be the conclusion of the Eden story. And make sure you have 5.3's MSQ done before Eden's Promise comes out, because it is a prerequisite. You only need 5.3's main scenario, not 5.4, 5.3. And we got to look at that a little bit later. Delubrum Reginae, which is the next part of the Save the Queen series, the 24-man normal, the Savage 48-man. They go back into details on that a little bit later. The Monk rework, Blue Mage update, and a few screenshots here. You can see Blue Mage with the Suzaku kick. Monk rework was actually just Blue Mage. Perfect. And I can hear that my cat has opened the door again. And this is always the problem with recording these live letter things early, is my cat likes to constantly throw the door open, and then my voice echoes throughout the rest of the house. So Aloha, I'm going to do this one more time, and you're going to stay in here for the rest of the video. That's what the plan's looking like it's going to be. All right. Anyway, with that, updates to the content finder. So this is something that's really a Blue Mage quality of life. They're going to allow you to undersize dungeons now, but still stay level synced. So you could do, for example, a level 50 dungeon. You could undersize it and do it with 3 people, but you could choose to keep it at level 50. This is so you don't need full parties of Blue Mages in order to unlock spells, but you can meet the conditions to guarantee the 100% learn rate. I'm sure other people will find reasons to want to try stuff like this if it's available there, but that's, that's the primary function is for Blue Mage. That's the main reason that it's actually being done. We got reminded that there's going to be some crafting and gathering updates, things to stuff like collectibles, expert recipes, fish eyes being removed. So it's going to make, the difficulty of certain fish is going to be changed around a little bit. And just fishing in general, the updated action will instead allow players to ignore time requirements for catching fish. And this will affect fish in areas introduced prior to Stormblood specifically. Has no effect on legendary fish or those caught while ocean fishing. And then there's going to be more. It'll be made to affect more fish in the future. So it'll probably get updated so that really old fish are easier to get, but the newer fish still maintain some difficulty for those who are, hunting that entire fishing log. Going to be new ocean fishing routes and rewards, new objectives, including personal objectives that you can achieve on the boat itself, though we don't know how that's actually going to pan out. One of the routes looks to be by Hullbreaker, And another one looks to be over, I can't really tell exactly where that's going to be. Yeah, so then you have solo missions, things that you could fish up. We don't know how it actually affects your score or anything, but it does pop up here. So I'm curious to see if that'll be for scripts or for score or what it's actually going to be. Idleshire, that's what I was thinking. Ishgardian Restoration, the final phase will be 5.41, Skysteel tools in 5.45. They're even going to make it so the Skysteel tools, when you finish crafting a weapon or when you use the crafting action, there's actually going to be enhanced visual effects. So that way your Skysteel tools have a little bit more glam for the efforts that you put in, considering a lot of the hardcore crafters and gatherers, they probably, already had BIS without the Skysteel tool, and they're probably not using it very much outside of glam. So that is something to consider at the very least. Explorer mode, the Unreal trials are going to be cycled out, shifting oubliette. There we go. I had to get schooled on how to pronounce that. Triple Triad, which they talked about a lot here. On top of things like the tombstones being cycled out, level sync, we went over that earlier, violin instruments, bulk advanced materia melding, and the ability to link quests in chat. They showed off the tombstone gear. Now, apparently, as I'm recording this, the Savage gear and the crafted gear was actually put on the 5.4 preview site. So we might take a look at that in a separate video. But this set was very Dark Souls-y. Like, this is the tank set. We have the ninja set here looking very Bloodborne-esque right there. That's the tank set with the very Dark Souls-esque look. We have another... Oh, look, dancer weapons they're like crescent boomerangs. So we're finally starting to get some slightly different looking dancer weapons like we were promised. You have the Dragoon Mace / Spear. It's honestly hard to tell what's even more threatening on that one. You have the Samurai set, which is on a Viera, so you don't know what the headpiece is going to look like. Probably a lot like the rest of them. You have the Astro, which, by the way, the globe looks dope as hell. And we have Red Mage, which, if that thing goes in, that thing is not coming back out. But that is Red Mage. You can see with the end of the staff, the catalyst at the end there. That thing is creepy. That is very, very creepy. So the first thing they went over was Eden's Promise. So again, without going too much into the trailer, which we're going to be breaking down, after this, we see that the first boss is actually the Dissidia model Cloud of Darkness, and it also is taking place in the World of Darkness itself. So we know that Eden's Promise is primarily going to be dealing with Gaia and what's going on with her. She's very prevalent in the trailer. And so our Dissidia Cloud of Darkness is going to be our first boss. Curious to see how it'll pan out. Based on some of the mechanics I saw, it looked like there was a weight mechanic to platforms that would fall if too much weight was placed on them or weight was placed on them for too long. You get kind of an idea with that a little bit later in these screenshots here in normal mode. You can, of course, fall off, as is expected. So yeah, it like destroys the edges of the arena. And then these platforms start pulsing. The longer you stand on them, the more they start pulsing. And when you move, it resets to a normal animation. So I'm assuming there's something weight related with these that will cause them to fall. And you'll need to bait AoEs in order to destroy the correct platforms. Because if you don't, you'll probably end up getting yourself killed sooner or later. Wonder if it'll gradually disappear for the whole fight, or if they'll regenerate at some point. Maybe on normal mode they will. Maybe on Savage they won't. A lot of mysteries, but that's all that we managed to get to see. Now, in regards to the other bosses, they did reveal the E10 boss in the trailer, but there's so many bosses in there, it's actually kind of hard to tell which one's which. I've seen people fighting over which one it is. There's a boss that appears at what looks to be Laxen Loft. I need to count how many people are in that encounter, because that looked to me like where the second one could have been. And I don't know what other boss would have been there, realistically. It probably wouldn't have been something in Matoria's Relic for a 4-man. If there's more than 4 people in it, I'm willing to bet that that's it. It could also be on the 5.4 site by now. I hadn't considered that as well. Maybe I should read my Twitch chat, because I'm sure somebody's actually putting it there. Wolf Boy, okay, yeah, so the boss in Laxen Loft is indeed the second Eden boss. They also said that the 4th boss is actually going to be something that... we're not expecting. It's designed by Tetsuya Nomura. It's not a design anyone's ever seen before. And that even though it's a Final Fantasy VIII themed raid, don't expect it to be all Final Fantasy VIII references. Cloud of Darkness did have Don't Be Afraid, which is the common battle theme from Final Fantasy VIII. But they did say that in Savage, there's going to be just a little more Final Fantasy VIII references than the normal mode. So I'm still really curious about those 3rd and 4th fights, but we'll see how it pans out. And they said that the 3rd floor might be a little bit of a prog stopper. I don't really trust them when they say things like that, because they've said things like that all throughout history, and it's very rarely been an accurate statement. He does say that Black Mage on the 4th floor, he can't put into words playing Black Mage on the 4th floor. So good luck with that. So for job adjustments, Dragoon, Bard, and Scholar are going to get slight buffs, as well as Red Mage. Monk is going to be getting some major adjustments, but unfortunately, they didn't really go enough into detail. We still have a lot of questions about Monk. Yoshi P said that he's really, really bad at Monk, so he didn't want to play it too much. He says that some people in Nico's chat were saying like, oh yeah, you're like a white belt Monk. And he's like, that's funny. They thought I would get a belt, right? And yeah, he's right. But anyway, so a few of them, the most major changes, Grease Lightning is now only going to be a trait. So it's just going to gradually increase your attack speed as you level up with Monk, which means you'll be at full speed pretty much the whole time. It no longer increases damage per level that it actually gets. Instead, they're going to be buffing all the potencies to make up for the fact that Grease Lightning is no longer tied to your damage dealt. They also are making changes to skills that were previously affected by Grease Lightning or integrated with Grease Lightning. Form Shift, for example, is just going to be a one-time hit perfect balance. So like when you have Form Shift activated, you can use any skill regardless of stance, and then the buff will go away. Tornado Kick's just going to be a normal OGCD now. Potency and recast time are going to be adjusted accordingly. And Six-Sided Star now increases movement speed. Probably the weirdest change. Six-Sided Star is supposed to be a disconnecting skill. You generally only use it when you're going to lose uptime, and it looks like they're keeping with that theme. But 5 seconds of movement speed is really weird. I wonder if that just means people are going to try to greed closer to when the boss is, it's like cast time is finishing on an AoE or something like that. But it probably won't see much change in terms of its actual function. Probably the biggest bit of information that's missing is Anatman. I mean, they could have just told us Anatman was going to give you perfect balance stacks, or it was going to give you chakra stacks. Like, it had to have done something as simple as that, right? But they don't make any mention of it, and they didn't show it off. So that's one of the biggest questions we walk away from. People also wondering about Fist of Fire, Earth, and most importantly, Wind, since it was so important to Grease Lightning this expansion. And odds are those are going to just go back to all their vanilla effects: fire damage, wind movement speed, earth damage taken. I suspect that's going to remain exactly the same, which just means you'll probably be permanently in Fist of Fire. But I don't know, because they didn't tell us. That's just what my assumption is going to be. He played it for a little bit, but again, he didn't really show us too much to give us much information. One big thing of information that we actually got to pull away from, and I'll pull up this screenshot, is Perfect Balance now works like Bunshin. You get it's more than 4 stacks. The screenshot's late. Let me see if there's one that has it with 5 stacks, or when it's like freshly used. There we go. It gives you 5 stacks of Perfect Balance, so it's basically 5 formless shifts, or form shift buffs, essentially. So this is a change I expected them to make to a lot of... Oh, it gives 6 stacks, by the way. Apparently, he had already used the stack here. So people have been using 6 GCDs in Perfect Balance since we got GL4, so it makes sense for them to give it 6 stacks, because then it keeps your Perfect Balance being effectively the same. The big thing with this change, and why I've expected this change for a long time for Monk, is because they probably want to move some of the more ping-unfriendly mechanics into being ping-friendly, and this is the thing I expect them to do the most. I expected it for Machinist and Hypercharge also. They haven't done that yet. They haven't said they're going to do it any time, but I do expect that anything that is, you have to get X amount of GCDs in a set window, or it's a massive underperformance of your power. I suspect every job that has something like that will probably get changed into stacks by 6.0. That includes Warrior, that includes Machinist. I'm sure there are other jobs that maybe could use it that aren't popping off on the top of my head. So that's another change that they didn't mention, but we can see there with the Perfect Balance stacks. And with that, they ended. They didn't talk about it anything. Like I said, we're still missing information on Anatman and any of the other skills and effects that may have changed. So please look forward to it in the patch notes. Then they spent way too much time on Triple Triad. They actually did a full Triple Triad tutorial for people watching, and I'm not reading you any of that because I'm not here to teach you how to play Triple Triad. So as for actual quality of life and changes coming to Triple Triad, they're going to add teasers and details onto where to obtain cards. So if you want to collect all the cards and you don't know where it is and you don't want to look it up, the game has some sort of inkling of where you might be able to obtain it. On top of that, they're going to be making it so regardless of how many cards you've collected, you can have as many 1 to 3 star cards in the deck as you want. But the restriction of 1 4-star or higher card is still there. The biggest thing I disagree with. And I was really excited because they were like, oh, we're going to ease the restrictions on cards. You know, it used to work like this. I'm like, oh, here it comes. Finally, we're going to be able to use more than 1 4-star card. And then they destroyed my dreams because we can still only use 1 4-star or higher card. At least with standard play. We did get something else, though. A new advanced rule, the draft rule, will have players, basically they'll put a bunch of cards in front of you, and you'll pick from 3 different sets. You'll pick one set of 2 and 3 star cards, so it's 2 cards out of the 5 total. You'll pick one 5-star card, and then you'll pick one group of 4 and 1-star cards. So you technically, with draft mode, have one of each tier. You have 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. But they're not your own cards, so it still really sucks. I don't know why they're so allergic to just letting us go ham with 4-star and above cards. That was my biggest debate of the patch of the live letter. I was so upset. This is what the draft mode looks like. So you can see, like, you pick one set from the top, one set from the middle, and one card from the bottom. And then that's what you're going to play the tournaments with that draft mode. Now, that draft mode, speaking of tournaments, the new open tournaments are going to occur every 2 hours, and it works very similarly to ocean fishing, where it'll essentially, take a minute, match up to 8 players, and if they don't have 8 players, they'll filter some NPCs in there for you to play against. Each player will play 3 matches, and whoever has the highest points wins the open tournament at the end of it all. So that's going to be trying to get people to do triple triad a little more frequently, as opposed to the old once every 2-week tournaments that we used to have. And those are going to be forced draft mode. So you're not going to have a choice to use your own cards. You're going to be using the draft mode with the random cards pretty much every time you do it. There's also invitational tournaments. Players can choose to host their own tournaments in-game. There's no rewards for these, but if players would like to, host their own tournaments, there's just a tool for that now. NPCs can still filter into that, and they can also choose to set up to 4 advanced rules if they want, and you can even queue into it via the duty finder. So if you queue in with 5 people for an invitational tournament in the duty finder, it'll filter the other 3 as an NPC. If you queue in alone, I'd assume it would filter in 7 NPCs, but that's hardly an invitational, and it always feels bad when the NPCs win the tournaments in Smash. Anyway, with that, they then took a break about halfway through. There was a video contest. They showed off a bunch of submissions for that. We're not going to cover them, but the submissions were pretty creative and an interesting background to have for the first 10 or so minutes of this 15-minute break. So we're scrolling through all those now. There's like some anime openings and like all sorts of crazy things that are in there. They started the second half by unveiling that the Unreal is, as expected, Titan Unreal. It's going to work pretty much exactly the same as the original, and that means even when you die. So in Titan Extreme and in Titan Hard Mode, when you die in that content currently, if you go back and just jump off the edge, you're permanently out of the fight. There's no way to get back in. It's something they've shied away from design-wise over the years, but they're keeping it that way for Titan Unreal. If you fall off, you are out of the fight for the rest of the fight. So definitely keep that in mind, because that is going to be a big one. So other than that, they've kept pretty much everything exactly the same. So he ran around for 15 minutes trying to solo it with God mode to get it to under 85% so he could jump off the edge. That was a great use of time during the live. Let's see. You can limit your party finders to people who have cleared the fight for Unreals as well now. So that you can do a Shiva. It was kind of annoying. But now you can do that. I can't wait to see Red Mage's backflip off. And Red Mages, as a reminder, you have engagement. If you're afraid of jumping off the edge on Titan, just disengage off your bar. Just don't even put it, just take it away. Just please. If you have a backflip of any kind and you don't trust yourself, please be careful, because you are not coming back from that backflip. So I don't care if it's a potency loss. Save yourself, so is being dead for the entire rest of the fight. Emerald Weapon, they didn't show us too much. It has a fence that breaks, so you will be able to fall off at some point. And it had like a rotating AoE that also had like a pulsing AoE, so you had to run around. And the animation for the AoEs were smooth. In the trailer, we also see a bunch of like hands and fists that go around and like carry AoEs or orbs. But we don't get to see the Oversoul. We don't get to hear the new music. So there's still a lot of mysteries when it comes to Emerald and Castrum Marinum. The reward structure will be the usual for Extremes, as we normally have. Then they showed off the new Treasure Dungeon. This will still be accessed with Zoner skin maps. You'll just be more likely to get the shifting oubliette of Ligia as opposed to getting the old Ligia dungeon. And it's going to work the same as the Stormblood roulettes. You're going to do the map. You're going to get the dungeon, hopefully. And then when you get the wheel spins. If it lands on a Tamos, there's a high probability of you being ejected. You can still survive it. Sometimes a lightning bolt comes through and saves you, but otherwise, you're basically going to be going through 5 roulettes hoping to not get ejected and to collect some sick loot. There's not really much else to say about that. It works otherwise exactly the same as the one in Stormblood. So if you're familiar with the shifting altars of Uznare, then you're familiar with this one. Also collectible changes. They're basically giving gatherers the same collectible change that crafters got, where there's no longer items. Collector's glove is gone pretty much. And so instead of getting, having the ability to screw up and forget to turn on Collector's Glove, you just collect items, essentially. Items that are collectible, they're specifically designated as collectible and will always be gathered as collectibles. They also completely rehauled the user interface to make it a lot more, basically include everything and all the information you need inside of the UI for gathering collectibles as well. They're removing wear, but they're replaced, but it still has like a standard durability. So basically the best way to describe this, and this is going to matter a lot more when we talk about, what's it called? Ethereal reduction. Basically the overall collectability is the only thing that matters at this point, but it's weird to describe because they essentially took wear and replaced it with just standard durability. So it's almost like wear is still there. The big thing to note is that gathering and perception is going to have a lot more of an effect on your collectability. So those melds are going to matter a lot more than they used to. It might mean that with the melds, it's way easier and way more effective than it used to be at the same time. So anyway, the big thing is that ethereal reduction for the collectible items, the value of the purity. So there used to be like 8 ranks of purity, and you need to have it at least like 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 8 in order to get certain items. That whole system is gone from ethereal reduction. It's now just going to be the more collectability that the item has, the more items it will yield. But all the items are on the loot table pretty much the entire time. So you still want to be effective with your collectability, but if you screw up or just aren't effective, you're not completely ruled out from getting some of the more expensive or the rarer items, I guess I should say. But obviously, the higher your collectability, the more items you get, the better your odds of actually getting the rarer items. So let's see with that. We're going to be moving into the final Ishgardian Restoration phase. This one's going to have the ranking system all over again. Same title, new achievement. But on top of that, there's actually going to be a monument erected on every server, depending on which crafting class has the most output in regards to the ranking season. So let's say that culinarians collectively provide the most points for the Sky Builder, for the Sky ranking season. Then a giant frying pan will be erected on that server in the Ishgardian Restoration. And that can change per server. And once it is selected, once it is chosen, it is permanent. It can never be changed. It can never be influenced. So if you want your server to have a needle and a limbic, you better hope that people are coordinating on that and actively want that monument, which means people competing for the title are essentially not helping with that. It's going to be weird to see how it actually pans out, but there will be a giant like frying pan or whatever tool erected on each server. So please keep that in mind. Now, it's only for crafting classes also. So if you're doing gathering, you're on a completely separate table there. There's no monument for gathering tools or anything like that. They also re-explained Explorer mode. This will allow you to currently explore Shadowbringers dungeons completely free of restrictions. No monsters, no bosses, just the environment, the music, some unique options that will allow you to do cool screenshots or do YouTube videos if you're into the cinema style stuff. You can put down striking dummies, you can ride mounts, summon minions, fashion accessories, all that stuff you can still do inside of a dungeon when it's under Explorer mode. It's only for Shadowbringers now. They are going to work to get it for older dungeons over time. So they've just run through. He shows off a few new mounts and minions. This mount, when it's not moving, it looks like a snowman. When it is moving, you lift the head up so you can see where you're going. That's probably our Christmas event mount, and that's a great mount. And I can't wait to just get 100 people with this snowman in Korthus following new players around while they do the main scenario. Let's make it happen. There's no flying inside dungeons. This mount also is an event mount, but this is for a collaboration. Final Fantasy XIV is doing a collaboration with Lawson's and Chocolate. And this mount is going to be gotten from that. It's going to be Japan exclusive, but they did say they're already working on a North American and European equivalent. So this mount will become available stateside and Europe side eventually. They did confirm that. So then they also showed off the new fashion accessory, which is going to be wings. I don't care that much. So enjoy your wings if you're into wings. So enjoy yourself. We have a Mora minion that's going to be added, and we can actually see a few different minions here. They're kind of hard to make out. You can see one of them comes from the dungeon. The third one comes from Materia's relic. The fourth one, which is a golden beaver, almost certainly comes from Elegia. This first one, Mora, probably comes from the new ocean fishing mounts. And I can't really make out the other ones too well. The last one especially is of particular interest to me. Not to mention that face and Yoshida's name being on it is of particular interest to me. The fifth one kind of looks like a baby Amaro, and then the sixth one I can't really make out. But then you can see, yeah, we have the golden beaver is almost certainly going to be from Ligia. Whether it be whether it be the shifting oubliette or the old one, won't matter. They just ran around the dungeon, explored a little bit. He summoned a striking dummy, used the points to teleport around to go to the various rooms, and yeah, and then also showed off how he has a limit break button, so you can have all the players that are in the explorer mode with you. You can all do limit breaks at the same time, so you have again opportunity for some cool screenshots or machinima style stuff if you need it. They also went over the new Save the Quest series, which is just going to include the large-scale dungeon/duty, the Delubrum Reginae, the Queen Sanctum, if you will. The normal mode is going to be 24 players, and it is not going to have any role restrictions, since you will have access to your Bajin Lost Actions in there. If you're afraid of it being 24 DPS, just throw Lost Cure 4 on your bar. It's all the healing you should need for the entire dungeon, realistically. If you're worried about dying, throw on a tank, whatever. Basically, it's easy enough on normal mode that it doesn't matter. Think of it like a 24-man Palace of the Dead, how you can get 4 DPS and be fine in there. You can be fine in here, too. And in fact, you have more options in here to be fine. The Savage mode, on the other hand, is going to have, you're going to need preset roles. You're going to need preformed parties. Unlike the 24-man, which is just free-for-all, join it, go nuts. You don't have to worry about what you end up with or who you queue with or how many people you're doing it with. Savage, however, they're going to want you to form parties of 48 people. They even said the party finder will be expanded to allow you to make a 48-person party specifically for the Delubrum Reginae. So that's going to be great as far as I'm concerned. He says you're going to need lost actions. There's going to be lots of gimmicks in Savage, but normal mode's going to be pretty standard, like a standard dungeon, like Trash Boss. There's not going to be anything too crazy for it. There are going to be 2 weapon steps after Delubrum Reginae is completed. The second step will allow you to customize the secondary stats on your relic, so I'd assume that'd be something like light farming, but they didn't say for certain. So there's no field area in 5.4 is the big takeaway. But in 5.5, there will be a new field area, and I'm curious what they'll do different. They commented on this in the interviews from the other day about how they want to make sure there's more content to do once your resistance rank is all the way increased in the final field area. So they probably have a different idea of what they want to do there, and I'm curious to see how that actually ends up panning out. So let's see, rewards and achievements that are Savage exclusive, so that way players who do Savage can go nuts with it. And then, yeah, there's the upgrades for the Resistance Weapon questline after you finish the Save the Queen story. They said that's it for the big stuff. Then they showed off some housing items. You know, you've got like a flower shop here. You know, you've got like a culinarian, like a chef's store. You've got milk, of course. You've got this very nice looking wooden house. You've also got weapon racks. We were supposed to get these in 5.3, and I guess they didn't make it. So in 5.4, you can have either a pre-filled showcase, so something that has just a bunch of random items. They have no meaning or belonging, or they don't belong to the people involved. But there's also empty showcases that you can put your own things in. I'm only concerned about what if you, like, let's say you have a house, like your free company has a house, and somebody has a showcase. And they put a bunch of their weapons in there, and then somebody else decides to take the showcase down. What happens? Does it just go to the salvager? Does it, like, I just want to know what happens in that situation, or can they just not take it down? There's all sorts of questions involved about the empty showcases that you can put items into. Then they showed off emotes, and I don't want to talk about it. We're going to skip talking about the first emote, but we're going to talk about the second emote. This one's a sweeping emote. In my opinion, this is my new favorite, somebody's dead on the ground and I want to use it emote. So, but what I mean by that is, when somebody dies, you usually do the squat emote, when you're trying to meme on them, or maybe you do the psych emote really quick. Now you just do the sweep emote, and that's my favorite one. That's what I'm doing. There's also eating an apple. There's eating jelly donuts, of course, everyone's favorite jelly donuts. If you don't understand the joke, then shame on you, because I'm not going to tell you where it's from. But yeah, jelly donut eating emote, that one's going to be perfect. And then there's going to be paint emotes, which I dread, and I don't want to talk about. Anyway, and then we have the Materia melding update. So basically, you're going to be able to set it to do as many melds as you can possibly do in a single slot until it succeeds. So like, let's say, for example, you're on your first overmeld. So overmelding has an under 100% chance. Obviously, this option is not available for guaranteed melds. It only applies to advanced melding or overmelding, where basically you'll now get this new tick box where you say, go until you succeed or run out of materia. And it will just do all of the attempts in an instant, and it'll destroy the failed attempts, and then it will, if you have enough, when it succeeds, it'll stop doing the melds. He got pretty lucky. He only lost, I think his biggest loss was he lost 39 materia. He failed 39 times and succeeded on the 40th try when he was doing the 5% meld chance. All his other melds were super lucky. He was like, I expected to lose 80 in one go. And he went like, I failed 2, I failed 11, I failed 9. And he was just like, wow, he's like, of course I burned all of my luck on this private server development character. Because now when he goes to play his real character, he's going to fail it 6,000 times. And he's already ready for that bad luck. He's like most of us who have done melding, he's had some experiences, okay? He knows what it can look like sometimes when you fail. But he took less than 100 materia to successfully pentameld 2 items. So that's pretty lucky. And most people would agree, that's pretty freaking lucky. So he was genuinely surprised about that. He also confirmed that if you actually split your materia into different stacks, you can kind of temper how many materia you try at a time in case you're not 100% sure you want to go all the way ham and use everything that you have. I, however, am a bold man and will probably be doing just that. Anyway, moving forward, they went into announcements. They will do a patch note reading for patch 5.4. They do this every time there is a downtime. And we have our announcement showcase confirmed for February 5th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, available in both Japanese and English. As many of you know, due to the pandemic in the world, all 3 of the fan festivals were canceled. And in the last live letter, they told us that they would do an announcement showcase in February that would cover the contents of those fan fests. Well, we now have a date for that. So mark your calendars, because we should be finding out expansion stuff officially on February 5th. They keep saying, maybe, I don't know. What are we going to announce? I don't know what it could possibly be. It's expansion stuff. They also said there's a chance we have a digital fan fest in May, but they haven't given us any more details about that. Now, that's part of a 14-hour broadcast, which only the announcement section is going to be in both Japanese and English. The rest of the 14-hour broadcast is only in Japanese, which is fairly standard. Anytime they have done any super major announcements at those other than maybe live letters, like if it's like expansion-related stuff, it's normally available in both languages. So there is that. They're also doing a Pusheen iMessage collaboration. My favorite one is the Tonberry, and probably the Help, the Potion Cat with the Help. So if you're somebody who uses Pusheen in early December, you'll have all these new emotes in order to use for it, the animated stickers for Pusheen. There's also the 50% off Black Friday sale that's currently going on as I'm even recording this video, and that ends on Monday. So, if you want to get the game 50% off, go get it. Go get it right now. Then here's the chocolate collaboration I mentioned earlier with the Choco Porker, something like that. This is the collaboration. So this is the Japanese equivalent of it with the different boxes and the different packages with the different characters, and then that's how you get that. NA and EU will have a different equivalent. They're also going to have a Mahjong tournament, just a fun little thing. As Yoshi P put it, Old Guys Playing Mahjong on the 29th of December. And with that, that was the end of live letter number 61. Now, again, thank you to Illuminor and Miuna for these translations. And we do have a little bit of extra stuff here at the end, just to clarify in case we missed anything. Looks like most of the information is pretty in line with what we read through with the initial summary. Other action potencies will be increased. It's all the same as what's listed in the slides. Okay, perfect. That's all for today. Thank you for attending. See you next time. Thank you to both of them for their translations, as always. So that's going to be a wrap for our Live Letter 61 overview. Wish we had learned a little bit more about some things. Feel like they spent way too much time on stuff like Triple Triad and trying to get Titan at 85% so he could jump off the edge and die. But I'm not at all disappointed. Most of the information, most of the stuff I'm still looking forward to. I'm still looking forward to Blue Mage doing Omega, especially Hello World, which will probably just diamond back the whole thing, as well as the Delubrum Reginae, the 48-man Savage, plus our, of course, our initial Eden's Promise Savage and Emerald Weapon, who I'm going to be collecting the mount from, because that'll make me 6 out of 7 for Shadowbringers mounts. But with that, thank you for tuning in to this video. Twitch, thank you for putting up with me analyzing this live instead of paying attention to you. And with that, I have other videos to get to making. We gotta watch the English trailer, which I have not watched yet, and try to dissect everything that's happening there unsuccessfully, but we gotta try, I suppose. And then we have State of the Realm later today as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We will, I will see you in the next video, and then we'll see you for State of the Realm at 4 p.m. Pacific today. If not, catch it on YouTube the day after. But thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. And until then, take care.